It was known as the Kingdom of Hawaii. And if you can see the slides, we're going to show you the different countries that we had treaties with. And so one of the things that on this slide right now talks about a creation chant. And so our creation story is held, and that's how we knew that, talk about way out there. We talk about the first man and first woman in our chants, and we believe that everything started from Hawaii. As you can see on the slide, the first treaty we had was with Britain and France. And then these are all the other countries that we had treaties with back in the 1800s. You're going to see that as you go down, you're going to see that green wording. That was when the national identity, our identity, started to get diminished. There was a big land division during that time, and that's how they managed to get into our communal land tenure system that we had, where every Hawaiian had an interest in the land. And it goes on to all the different treaties again, with Norway, even Tahiti. As you can see, other countries, Germany, there's France, Netherlands, Italy. I mean, this is what we had before. This is what we had before America came and destroyed what we know as Hawaii. And as we move on into this slides, then it leads to 1993. U.S. Public Law 103-150 passed Congress and signed by the President of the United States at that time, Bill Clinton. And that was for the illegal overthrow of the Hawaiian Kingdom in 1893. I had the opportunity to sit on the Sovereignty Advisory Commission for the state of Hawaii, and came with a lot of flack. People were saying I was selling out, but that wasn't true. I wanted to get to the source of things. And so when this law passed, it really put a lot of energy into our population, because everybody were excited about what was going on. What does this mean? So as a commissioner for the Sovereignty Advisory, I had an opportunity to bring in an international lawyer to give his opinion on this. And his opinion was, now that the Hawaiian people have finally, now that the United States have finally conceded to the illegal overthrow, the Hawaiian people have the right to restore their independence. Now that kind of rocked the house, because you never hear this, or you never see America apologizing by law, for what they had done to anybody. And we got that. They destroyed something that was very sustainable, very highly organized, under communal land tenure with sophisticated language, culture, and religion. That's who we were prior to the damage. And so I think this leads to why we're going back into talking about peace and friendship treaties with the tribal nations or other nations around the world. Because I think because we have this law, it's kind of like a needle for everybody else. It doesn't only fit us. It says, whereas prior to the arrival of the Europeans in 1778, Native Hawaiian people lived in a highly organized, self-sufficient, subsistence social system based on communal land tenure. Like I said, with a sophisticated language, culture, and religion. What does that mean? To me, as time went along, I realized that every Aboriginal, Native, Indigenous people went through the same thing or had these roots in their culture. And what they're trying to teach us now is not something new. It's just something that we gotta adjust to and bring up to speed. And so it's been 30 years for us. In 1994, that legal attorney, I asked him, what do we have to do now? He said, you got to proclaim the restoration of your independence. And once you do that, you have to go into a constitutional convention. So we gathered up over 300 elders from all the different islands, because that was the fastest way to reach the community. Through the elders, you reach their brothers and sisters and their families on different islands. So that is how we brought our nation together. So in 1994, it took us that whole year in a constitutional convention, which we came up with a constitution in 1995 and promulgated that. And the hardest part was to assert your right. This is what we do, and it's not easy, because it is a bumpy road. Things come at you that you wouldn't believe that could happen, and it did happen to us. And actually, I'm here today, very proud of the steps we took back then, and I'm very happy that that it's finally come to a point where we can share this with everybody. I think that's important to know, that we have a legal foundation and who we are and what we want to do. And with that said, I'm going to ask our Vice President, Brandon Makahava, to come up and give you some of our, things that we're doing too. So thank you. Aloha.
Our president is very humble, but the fight that he fought, over 30 years ago was, something unprecedented. Our nation actually started out as an occupation of lands. When America apologized to us, in the apology, they promised a reconciliation process. They didn't give a timeline. They didn't give any office, any authority to begin enforcing this reconciliation process. They just kind of left it out there. And so, with the advice of the international attorney, he told our president, don't wait for reconciliation. You got to take the game to them. If you wait, they'll go on their terms. A reconciliation shouldn't go on the terms of the people that abused us. It should be on our terms, when we're ready. And so we didn't wait. And we were the only people that didn't wait. Everybody else waited. So we organized down at the beach, and at the time we was, this was 1993, year of the Hawaiian, the state was, there was all kinds of Hawaiian programs happening, and everybody's proud to be Hawaiian, learning our history. This is finally coming out. America is finally apologizing. Mind you, America has only apologized 5 times in its almost 250-year history for all of the atrocities that they've done to all of us. And so when they apologized, they were occupying a beach. Our president, some of our elders were already at the beach trying to organize people, trying to help our people that, we're celebrating Hawaiians and all of that, yet our people are still homeless in our own homelands. And so he organized them at the beach, and he began teaching them this law. And the beach is actually state lands, right? Ceded lands. The state holds 1.8 million acres of our stolen lands. In the apology, it talks about the United States helped to steal those lands away from our people without our compensation. They spell this out in the whereas clauses. And so what he was explaining to them while at the occupation was that we don't need to be swept off of these lands. We don't need to go anywhere. We can start right here, right on this beach park, right? And that occupation grew to about 300 Hawaiians. When you get 300 Hawaiians, it's a critical mass of people. And so when people, the cops would come, the state officials would come, and they try and get guys out of there. Yeah, you can get a few guys out of there, but you don't have 300 cells to put all of these people in there. So we had a critical mass. We also was educating the state officials and the police on this federal law, letting them know that this is above your guys' jurisdiction. And so with these two elements, the critical mass of people and the law, we occupied. And it was one of the longest occupations on Oahu, in ever. It was a 15-month occupation. The state was really stuck. When people, in order for reconciliation to happen, you have to have two parties come to a table, right? So, at that time when they signed the apology law, we were at the table, right? But America, the state of Hawaii, they pretended like they didn't know where the table was. And so when we brought the critical mass of people to this occupation, when we had the law in our hand, and the last piece, which was really important, was we were across from a big tourist attraction at the time in the 90s called Sea Life Park. Once we locked that part in, every day we were protesting outside on the highways, people holding signs, telling people to go home. This is not America anymore because of the law, We ruffled a lot of feathers, like our president talked about, with everybody. And when, Hawaii is dominated by two industries, tourism and the US military. So we was messing with the golden goose, but they couldn't do anything about it because we held the law in our hands. And this law is not like a lot of laws, and when we talk to our kids at home and we educating them on these kinds of things, we talk about justice and law. Law is man's interpretation of what justice is, so they can move the goalposts wherever they want to fit, whatever time it was. At one point in time, slavery was legal in here. Was that right? No, but it was a law. That's man's interpretation of what justice is. Justice is right or wrong. And so although, we had to break a few laws, we had to get arrested, we're on the right side of justice, and that's all we kept, and that's all we maintained. And that has got us to the point where we're at today. 30 years later, still asserting our rights on our lands. So with these tools, we had the leverage to actually bring the violators, the oppressors to the table, because they wanted us off the beach and they didn't know how to get us off the beach. They couldn't arrest us. They couldn't break their own federal laws, so they actually had to come to the table and negotiate with our president, with our elders. And so they offered this piece of land to us, 45 acres at the foothills of the mountains. And to them, it was kind of like we're at the beach, we're in front of everybody. But if we tuck them away back into the mountains where nobody can see them, it's, we can kind of get rid of them and brush them under the rug. For us, we wanted to go back there. Why? That was the watershed. That is where our civilization started from mountain to ocean. And the toughest negotiation my uncle ever had to do, because the state was already ready to give us the land just to get us off. The toughest negotiation he had to do was coming back to the occupation and talking with the people there, talking with the elders, talking with everybody, because we just got through educating everybody that these are our lands, and now we gotta kind of explain to them that, for what we want to do, the protest has to evolve. We cannot build a nation at the beach, we cannot build a nation on the side of a highway, You guys know what happens to big protests. You saw what happened, at No Dapo. You get these instigators come in. Anything can happen when the occupations are prolonged. Same thing happened up at Mauna Kea. And so, our president had to make the tough discussion with our people, and we convinced our people that, we'll go up to the mountains and we'll start our life up there. So this is where our life began. So this is just a picture of our ahupua'a system. Every island has an ahupua'a. Our islands are actually split up into these communities. And what an ahupua'a is a community from mountain to ocean. So every ahupua'a had a mountain region and an ocean region. Everyone had taro patches, everyone had everything that every other ahupua'a had. And this system actually kept our people peaceful for thousands of years. We didn't war with each other because there was no reason to war with each other. Everybody had the exact same thing that everybody else had. So what we did was stay in there and just refine what we were doing. Like how the whereas clause says, we were a highly organized people with a sophisticated language, culture, and religion. Well, that sophistication was beyond that too. We had sophisticated agriculture. We had sophisticated navigational knowledge, that we all perfected because these families stayed and perfected these skills on the ahupua'a. The main law of ahupua'a was that the most precious resource in the ahupua'a was the fresh water. Like everywhere else, water is irreplaceable, but really on an island, it's paramount. And it didn't matter if you were at the top at the headway or all the way at the bottom near the shoreline, everybody had equal access to the water. So it created a system of equality. Today, if we was to describe the United States in an ahupua'a, there would be a whole bunch of rich guys up at the top, damming up the water and only sending trickles down to their friends. That's what injustice looks like. That's what inequality looks like. In our system, equality was built in. It wasn't a chief telling you had to share and all that. This was the system that already everybody grew up in, everybody understood, and everybody understood that we had a relationship to take care of each other because of this blessing, right? And although we didn't need to pay for the water, what we paid for and what we paid with is our responsibility. You had a responsibility to take care of the water, right? So we wouldn't let the kids go all the way at the top and urinate in the water or play around and all that. There was an order to things. So the kids could have access to the water, but they had access all the way at the bottom. The people who had the top access, where the waters were fresh, were the ones that had the most responsibility. In this type of system, that's how government is supposed to work. The guys with the most responsibility should be the ones ensuring that everybody else gets access to the resources. These are the indigenous knowledges that we're missing today because we're not in leadership roles. And in order for this new green transition to come in, or any of these things to come in, these knowledges need to be brought back, and it's common sense, This is where Waimanalo is situated, where our ahupua'a is, where our nation is. We're located on the island of Oahu. People have never been to Oahu. Oahu is like the metropolis island. You know, it's where Waikiki is. It's where the Pearl Harbor is. All the huge military bases. It's, you know, it's the belly of the beast. That's why our occupation was so important, because it wasn't somewhere off where nobody could see and they would just let us do our thing. It's right in their face, because that's what you have to do when you assert your sovereignty. Somebody has to see you, and you got to make them feel it. This is a view from the top of our village. This is how we started. When we came off of the beach, you know, nobody had houses. These were houseless people. We didn't get any help from the state, of course. We didn't get any help from the feds. We had to build from the ground up. This is how we started. The humblest beginnings, like all of us, you know. But we have this vast history that that our president explained. Like, we had treaties with other nations, and I just was talking with David about this. You know, when we were recognized globally, we started off with the recognition of 3 nations: the United States, France, and the United Kingdom. And I was telling David, you know, it's so ironic, because last year is when we started our peace and friendship treaty work, you know, which is work that, you know, our second vice president and foreign minister would kind of get into, but it's basically recognizing each of our nations as having not just a sovereign authority over their lands and their territories, which they already know, but like truly recognizing that you folks are the nations that we need to recognize, not the United States. See, we don't believe in federal recognition for us, because that wasn't what America stole from us. They stole an independent country, right? It's like you taking in one, you know, Ferrari to the shop, and then you come back and it's a Toyota Camry. You know, I mean, it's still a car, but it's not our car. You know, reconciliation shouldn't happen on your terms or at their convenience. It should be our terms, right? And that's why their law is so important, and that's why we leverage the law at every point in time. And that's what the Peace and Friendship Treaties is. We want to recognize each tribe here, the 574 federally recognized tribes and the unrecognized tribes. You know, it's the same thing we've been doing all our lives. You know, we've done this before. We have the authority. The Hawaiian Kingdom was the first non-European, non-American nation to belong to the family of nations, which later became the League of Nations, which later became the United Nations. We recognize other countries too. We were the first country to recognize Argentina as a country. We were the first country to recognize Samoa as an independent country. These are brown countries. They didn't like that. But we had the authority and we had the power to do that. And we still have that power and authority to do that today. It's kind of an overview of our village. We started off in tents, and now we got houses, you know. We had to get donations to help us build over the years, because we didn't get any resources from anybody. And we look at our ahupua'a kind of like, you know, like what you folks had, your tributaries, and the systems that we had before, the trade routes, the logistics, everything. This was all sophistication that we already had as a people. You know, today when they bring in all the innovation, they bring in all these things, they're talking to us like we're children, because, you know, we're just learning all of these things, because we're too busy out here fighting the government, fighting everybody else. We never had time to go learn about all of this stuff, but these innovations were already inherent in us. We took care of our waterways. We took care of our people. These waterways became tradeways where we can help, you know, foster relationships with other tribes, to help work with other folks, you know, to better their lives. So I'm gonna hand it over to our second Vice President, our Foreign Minister of International Affairs, Giancarlo Garcia.
My name is Giancarlo Garcia. I'm the second Vice President, Minister of Foreign Affairs. I also oversee the Ministry of Commerce. I'm going to quickly just go through, now that all of that foundational information and is there, we'll talk a little bit about what we see as pillars of sovereignty for our nation. The first pillar is communications, global connectography. In 2017, the nation of Hawaii, we launched Hawaii's first community-managed broadband network with the partnership of great organizations like the Internet Society, partnering up with the State of Hawaii, Department of DBED, and to launch this wireless ISP at our village. And this was really instrumental for us because, not only a struggle of housing, but also a struggle to stay connected, not only internally, but also to the rest of the world. And so this was really instrumental in us shifting a lot of that consciousness into a digital space. And it was also a really pivotal time for us to deepen the relationships that we have in the corporate organizations and also with the state of Hawaii. Participating in the Hawaii Broadband Hui and further participation with organizations around the world like the Connect Humanity Institute. These are some photos of our install. Back in 2017, we stood this ISP up. We actually put together a crew of our village members to trench the fiber. We trenched from the road into the core of our village, and it was a really big feat for us. Now we've expanded that support to the other islands and the other pu'uhonua. This is a quick scheme of how our internet is distributed. And this is what we look like in the mountain over there. This is the expansion. So these are the Hawaiian Islands, if you haven't seen them before. We're on the island of Oahu there with the 3 dots. Energy, of course, and without energy, we actually don't have digital communications. And that's been one of our big pain points is our village runs off of very little power. We're still connected to the HECO grid, and we're working on our own microgrid project, leveraging the sun, leveraging hydro and wind. And then we've been working with lots of different partners as well to innovate and to bring solutions to our nation. This building here, these are some renderings that our Vice President put together of what this microgrid project will look like. We're actually leveraging some of the standing inventory eucalyptus trees from our forest down to our sawmill to create the pillars for this building. This building will also be a space for us to gather and do different activities, from retail to actually housing our guests. And really taking these concepts and merging them together with our traditional architecture, our terrace, our agriculture, and some of the buildings that we have in mind in the mountains. Transportation is the third pillar that we look at. And so bringing mobility to our village in different ways. Our Minister of Transportation is Mike Stanley, and we work with his company, it's called TransitX, to bring a fleet of autonomous podways to different parts, starting with our village. These podways also transport energy and communications, and so it's really an impactful way for us to move goods and to move people while bringing important infrastructure to different parts of our village and eventually different parts of our island. This brings us to international relations. So in 1993, actually, our president has been on the board of the International Indian Treaty Council for over 30 years, being involved in that international conversation and really exposing the organization to all of the foundational work that has been done, including the law and including our Constitution. As mentioned, back in 2022, we started our international relation efforts. We traveled to Southeast Asia for our Peace and Friendship Tour, and we launched our first ever international consulate in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. And that really allows us to connect the dots of where our kupuna once were and reestablish the international relations that we had in Southeast Asia and other parts of the world. Since then, we've ratified a few other treaties, like our Vice President said, including just recently in January, we signed with the Vanuatu Trade Commission, they're based out of Ghana, and the African Diaspora Bank to develop trading routes between Hawaii, Vanuatu, parts of Africa, rest of Austronesia, and eventually Indian country. Last year we ratified 3 treaties, meaning that we met with tribal leadership, we met with the chairman and the chiefs and presented and we were able to ratify 3 treaties. The first treaty was with the Timbisha Shoshone tribe. Our second treaty ratified was with the Yurok tribe, California's largest tribe, Bear River Band, and the Vanuatu Trade Commission. We're also establishing strategic treaties with different organizations, including Onopo Strategies. Some of you folks know B'nai Kalak. She's our ambassador to Indian country, and the 7G Foundation. Our goal is to sign peace and friendship treaties with all 574 federally recognized tribes and unrecognized tribes. Here are some photos of those events, ratifying with the Yurok and ratifying with the Timbisha Shoshone tribe. It's hot up here. And some photos of our international relations, meeting with the Embassy of Nepal in Kuala Lumpur, and that's our consulate in Kuala Lumpur, Malaysia. We also have another consulate in Kathmandu, Nepal. One effort that we'll be launching this year is called AINA. It's the Aboriginal Indigenous Native Alliance, and this is really the space that we look to culminate all of this international relations. Our mission really is world peace, and it's our goal to unify and to share this vision of peace and friendship, perpetual peace and constant friendship. This was the language that existed in the treaties of before, and so we're following in the footsteps of that, and to really restore, maintain, and preserve the sophisticated language, culture, and religion that the Native Hawaiian people have, and bringing that to the rest of the world. That's all I have. You guys want to add anything else, or?
Try the back one.
Okay. All right.
This is where this is actually where our occupation began. It's a little bit more down, but we occupied this whole beachfront. That tourist attraction is across the street, but I just wanted to point that out because we don't need to start off, from anywhere but inside here. The recognition we seek with everyone in this room here today is your recognition, not the United States recognition, not any other country, because we're not ready to deal with them yet. We still got a lot of issues that have to be addressed with the US, and we'll get to them, and we'll get to that recognition again, but the recognition we seek is the one that the US refuses to recognize for our Indian brothers and sisters. The recognition that you all deserve. And we want to begin in our relationships with peace and friendship. And sometimes it's kind of scary. It's a scary word for people that we're realizing, it's a traumatic word when we talk about treaties, because so many of our treaties got disregarded. But we're here to tell you that our treaties will live on forever with our people. We sign a treaty with you, it's a marriage, for life. Whatever resources we can provide to you is yours by treaty. All of these relations that our Vice President talked about in all the different countries and nations, they're open. to seeing how they can work with you folks, because we had to go over there and educate them about our history. They didn't know about us, just like they don't know about all of you, you know, and so we need to bypass all of these barriers that we might have in our own minds that says that, oh, we're not, we just stay here and, we just do our own thing within the confines of this government over here. But we existed way before this government ever was around. This is a baby. They've only been around not even 250 years and they look like they're on the brink of collapse. Our people been here for millennia, thousands of years, and will be here for thousands of years after that, when the collapse actually happens. We have a chant in our language. It's E Ioano Luna E Piano Lalo E Huiana na Moku E Ku Ana Kapaiha. And what that means, it's a prophecy that those up above will one day fall, and those that have been oppressed, those that have been kept down below, will rise up together in unity, and all will be right. I wanted to leave some minutes for our president to give his final addresses.
How's our next generation? Unreal, yeah. Well, hopefully that, our presentation would inspire people to assert their rights even more. And I know the situation with tribes, and what they face with the federal government and that relationship. And so we've learned to jump right through, over, under, any way we could get to our goal, and without hurting or hindering anything else around us. And I think that's the most important thing that we want to share, with you. Aloha is a feeling. It's not just a word on some soy bottle or a sugar bag or something like that. All of us have been, manipulated that way. Our sacred everything has been violated. And so you have the responsibility to make it happen. Because after you probably won't have another chance. And we gotta learn to, especially the older guys gotta learn to pass on the responsibilities too, so that the next generation will be stronger. And really appreciate having the time to do this, to sharing our, what we do. That's what we do. That's the only thing we do. We don't know nothing else but fight for us. And when we fight for Hawaiian, we're fighting for everybody, not just ourselves, because we know that we have a key to break things that are politically big political obstacles for us. And we're gonna hold them accountable. We gotta hold America accountable. Just like that presidential order that he signed, for tribes. They can change things, but you gotta hold them to the fire. And I think with that said, I wanna just wish you aloha nui, and thank you very much.